Amanda Healy from Warrikal and Kirrikin.
Yeah, much appreciated, and I think you're crazy. But
Did you know what? You won't be the first person to say that to me.
I remember all the early businesses at that time were Barry Taylor, Peter Todd, Daniel Tucker. There was a whole group of us trying to. So yeah, we've gone a long way from where your question was, right?
We have, but what I want to do is get into Warrikal.
Yes, okay, please do.
Let's go.
Okay. Major contract has been with Fortescue. They've been fantastic. They opened the doors for us. BHP, Rio Tinto, Roy Hill now we work for, Pilbara Minerals. They all understand what it is we're about. In 2014, I started Kirrikin to actually print scarves and ties and return funds to Aboriginal artists. So we turned Kirrikin into a social enterprise, and so now we print authentic Aboriginal artwork onto clothing and accessories and, sell it all over the world. But one of the things that's come from that is
Welcome back to another episode on The Gold Room. We've got a bloody ripper episode today. We have Amanda Healy from Warrikal and Kirrikin. Amanda, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Josh. It's great to be here on this chilly morning in Perth.
Very chilly. I'm glad I was able to give you my swan dry to wrap around your feet. Here I am in shorts and a T-shirt.
Yeah, much appreciated, and I think you're crazy. But
Did you know what? You won't be the first person to say that to me. Look, Amanda, we always start with the life and the times, and you have had an exceptional life. You've done so much, the businesses that you've been a part of, the traditional landowners and the empowerment of young Aboriginal people and businesses is absolutely amazing. I've been looking forward to, and obviously I've been trying to pressure you to get in the studio with me, so listen, I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, so take me back.
Okay. So I guess that like many Australians, I of my era, I grew up probably mostly in country areas of Australia. My dad was Aboriginal, my mum wasn't. He was very, very proud of his Aboriginality at the time when it was not an easy thing to be. I guess my very earliest memories of my dad was his commitment to teaching us about country. And my very first clearest memory was me about 3 years old with my dad and brothers and sisters down on the creek catching yellow bellies and I think that probably would have been southern Queensland somewhere. His cultural heritage was from the Hunter Valley in New South Wales and was as a Wonnarua person. But of course it was a very difficult time to be living in New South Wales under the protection of the New South Wales government, as it was here in Western Australia, by the way. We moved into southern Queensland where my mum's family were from. My mum was non-Indigenous, came from quite a large southern Queensland family. And so they moved into South Queensland. He worked at culling kangaroos for a living, which was one of the things that he was permitted to do.
Permitted? Can you?
So I guess
I'm going to have. So I do apologise, Amanda. I'm going to have quite a few questions.
Yeah,
obviously,
sure.
being from New Zealand, I'm not the full bottle on the entire history of Australia.
Yeah.
Can be quite controversial, some of the history. However, if I look, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, sure. So just to give you a bit of background, the Aboriginal Protection Act was a state act, and during the 40s and 50s and into the 60s, really up until 1967, Aboriginal people were notionally protected by their state government. I guess one of the things that people were regularly required to do was sign what in New South Wales we referred to as a dog licence, which meant that Aboriginal people weren't permitted. They agreed to be allowed to have a work in town, have a life, have permission to walk around freely, etc.
In what year?
So the licences came into being probably in about the 1920s, right through until 1967, though there's been a lot of hangovers from that. So at the time, it was not permitted for my dad to work in certain types of work. He couldn't vote. He couldn't have a bank account. He had couldn't live in town. He wasn't permitted to talk his language. He wasn't permitted to practice his culture. He wasn't permitted to associate with his extended family. So,
what about meeting your mum?
So my mum wasn't Indigenous. So
No, I know, but I mean,
how did they meet?
Yeah.
So when
if he's not allowed in town, if he's not, they're not meeting at a bloody local dance, are they?
No. Actually, that's an interesting thing, and I've asked this question a number of times over the years of my mum and dad, who both gone now. So in those days, my grandfather, my dad's father was an Irishman who was part of the Easter Revolution in Ireland. He'd been shot and left for dead, and his brother picked him up and took him across to Nottingham, and they stitched him up, and he jumped on a boat to Australia and met an Aboriginal woman, my grandmother, in the back of New South Wales.
What
right?
do you know? What year? Approximately what year around the?
So it was about 1920, 21 when he came into Australia, and it was within the following year. So they were married and had one son.
They were married?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Were married, which there is a marriage licence.
Yeah.
So given that he was non-Indigenous and the rules at the time were around, we had a white Australia policy, so the rules were that that Australia was trying to breed out Aboriginal people. So it was accepted that white men or women could marry black people. So we all started to look, this great big melting pot, as long as it was white-skinned, right?
Yeah.
So that was the era. In 1967, there was a referendum that recognised Australian Aboriginal people's rights in terms of things like voting and language and participation in the workforce and having bank accounts, etc. All of that sort of stuff that everybody else was entitled to. So my father wasn't entitled to any of those things as an Aboriginal person. As a young man, he moved from his family in Singleton in New South Wales, or just out of Singleton, a little town called Broke, which was quite prophetic because I think that's how he stayed the rest of his life, was Broke, bless him. So he moved up to Koori to play football.
Oh,
he was quite a good sportsman. Yep. He played both football and cricket.
Good genes. Aboriginals got good footy genes, eh?
They
good
have.
Sporting genes.
Yeah, good sporting genes generally, I suppose,
Yeah.
What is it, the twitch reflex or something that
Short.
responds?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he played football. He played rugby league in Koori and also was quite a handy cricketer. So to earn money on the weekends, he acted as the clown at the local pool. So they used to have entertainment in those days. So this is, we're talking war years now.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they used to do is get pay young men to, do triple backflips off the, diving board and stuff. So he was good for that sort of stuff as being a sportsman, and they were all pretty handy.
Cricket and diving, okay.
Anything, right?
Yeah, for sure. I can only imagine.
Yeah, anything to keep you entertained, I guess, in those days. There was a lot of other stuff going on in the world.
Yep.
And I remember Mum saying she'd gone to Koori, having grown up in southern Queensland, and Gundagai. I think she was living with her older sister when her parents died.
And you said big family.
Big family, 9 kids.
Oh,
and
that's the same as my father's family.
Yeah,
huge.
And I think they'd lost a couple as well. So, so she went across to get a job in Koori in the post office, and they used to live in the nurses' quarters. to work in the post office. So she went to. They used to go to the pool every Saturday, and of course that's where they met. Was here's the pool clown doing backflips off the.
The blossoming romance.
The blossoming romance. And then the next time they'd met, there was a afternoon tea or something at the nurses' quarters in Koori, and all the boys turned up with biscuits or homemade cookies, and Dad had actually gone out bush and found a wild watermelon and brought it to this afternoon tea. So that won a heart, really. How could you How could you resist a fresh watermelon on a hot summer's afternoon?
Yeah.
So that's how they met in Koori, and very soon after, within 9 years, they had 7 kids. So, and I'm the second.
Bloody busy. No TV.
Well, there wasn't much TV in those days, right? You know, so this is mostly through the 50s, and I'm the second youngest of the 7. So, and we, moved before I was born in southern Queensland, so they'd moved across the border into Queensland, where he sort of escaped the attention of the protector of Aboriginal people by this time. So during the 50s, they were busy making babies and populating Australia, as was the patriotic thing to do, I suppose.
Still should be like that today. It's financially impossible.
It is financially impossible. Well, it's probably not. It's just that our expectations now are so much higher and,
Oh, look, I do agree with you, but I do think that, the cost of living is... We digress. That's what we do here. But the cost of living, imagine trying to fill up babies' bottles, with and a roof over the head and food and things like that for a family of 7.
Yeah.
People don't want to do it with a family of 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I apologise. Go.
Yeah, and I guess, it was a different time. We were all a lot skinnier as kids in those days too, right? There was no extras to be had anywhere.
Did you grow up with a loaf of bread on the table with every meal?
Yeah, I think so. I sort of I do recall that. And I do recall that we ate a hell of a lot of mutton. Mum, it was called in those days, and it was very well cooked. It was sort of slow cooked for half a day or something.
Yep.
So and lots of vegetables, always homegrown. Dad was a very handy gardener.
Awesome.
So we always had bloody broad beans and Brussels sprouts and stuff like that he'd grow in the garden. And to this day, I still can't stomach Brussels sprouts.
Oh, look, you and 98% of the population.
Yeah. So I guess that was it. As I said, my very earliest memory of my dad was him teaching us to fish and to be independent of you didn't have to buy anything at the shop. So he loved that, and he loved taking us out bush and showing us where to find the bush lemons and mushrooms and things that you could eat in the bush. And I still have a great love for the bush and being on country and the peace and security almost of being away from the bigger cities.
Yeah. Go into security. What do you mean by security of being away? How did that make you feel?
I guess that I still feel safe in the country that I don't always feel in the city, I should say. I guess the peace, the quiet, the remoteness, you can see and hear what's around you and see and smell what's coming. And
you're more aware.
I
guess, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's always, and it's always been quite comforting for me to be there. We only recently bought a little farm in the southwest, and I'd rather be there than anywhere at the moment, So that's my bolt hole right now.
Nice. And so what about early years for you?
So I guess my very early years were spent in southern and central Queensland. My dad had spent time with one of his brother-in-laws who was a surveyor. So he learnt to be a surveyor, which had he been south of the border, he would never have been allowed to do. So then he hit the mining industry. I think the first job I remember was about 1962. We were living on the outskirts of Brisbane, and he went up to Mount Isa to work on the mines, Mount Isa mines in those days. So my relationship with the mining industry is it's basically all I've known all my life.
And so the whole family moved to Mount Isa?
No. Mum, because there was 7 of us, and Mum was a nurse's aide by this time, so she worked in the hospitals in Brisbane, I think, at the time. And one of my older sisters and myself went up to Dad, and there was a medical reason that I had to be taken out of Brisbane because of the humidity and cold. See?
Asthma?
No, it was actually bronchitis that I used to get quite badly, and the doctors advised me to go to a drier climate. So Mum put me on a plane with my older sister, and off we went to Mount Isa for a year or so during that period of the development.
Lungs dry up?
They did.
A lot better?
Yeah. I still hate the cold though.
Yeah, I actually, that's one thing. So I was quite a sickly child in New Zealand with my asthma. It was terrible. And came over here, and it took a few years to acclimatise, but I've never been healthier.
Yeah.
Yeah, Western Australia's just cleared up my lungs.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
The dry weather. Yeah, though sometimes the dust and grasses and stuff can get to you. But
for me, it's a change. For me, it's a change of temperature from hot months or a hot day into a cold morning. That dramatic change.
Yeah.
Same thing, cold to hot. The same thing. I just get it. So I've just got to monitor extra Ventolin here and a bit more of this there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what about schooling, Amanda?
So I started school in. I think my first recollection of school was in Mount Isa. There was a local kindy or primary. I don't know. I still remember hating going to school at that time in my life.
Yep.
And then from there we moved. So from Mount Isa we moved back. When I went back to Brisbane, we moved up to Gladstone in central Queensland, where Dad was working on the alumina refinery, the development of the alumina refinery there. So that's sort of mid-60s, I'm guessing, by this time. And then finally in Rockhampton, where he based himself and worked around the coal fields there until I was about 14 or 15 years old, and then we moved across here into Western Australia up to Geraldton, where, Dad had been quite successful in Queensland, and not too many people asked about, what his cultural background was.
Was he fair-skinned with the Irish heritage?
He was a bit of a mix. I wouldn't say super fair-skinned, quite dark-haired and dark-eyed.
Kind of like your Kiwi?
Yeah, probably, a bit more like he wasn't super dark by any means.
Like
but
a caramel.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a good way to describe it because, we were pretty close to the impact zone of colonisation around Sydney, and of course, as the colonisers moved over into and out of parts around on the outskirts of Sydney to do things like farming, etc. They moved into our areas fairly quickly. So the relationships between male and female, developed pretty rapidly. And I guess there was a lot of people from my country and around Sydney even aren't very dark skinned anymore. And there's a bit of an argument that we were never really particularly dark skinned in that area anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the genetics. Don't know the genetics of whatever. Yeah. I actually once heard this beautiful story from an old fella in Melbourne, I think he was, and he said people very often ask him how come he identifies as Aboriginal when he's fair skinned, and he said, that's because I was born during the day. When you see those really black-skinned black fellas, they're born at night and white. Don't know how true that is.
I can't imagine. Very true, but beautiful story nonetheless.
And it's actually quite a soft way to introduce that whole thing, about Aboriginality.
It's got some comical value to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it
lightens the mood.
Exactly.
No puns intended.
Yeah, absolutely. But it also introduces that story about, like that whole issue of around, rather than going into the deep, why are we fair-skinned about the rape and torture and, like displacement of our people, then, it sort of softens that quite nicely and makes it a gentler discussion, which sometimes it's worth doing.
Yeah, look, tough conversations. There's a certain time to have them, and look, some people want to have them all the time, Some groups want to have them all the time, but I do think time and a place.
Yeah, and I think now, I used to do that a lot when I was younger. I'd argue with people about things and about particularly Aboriginality.
But if you're arguing with someone, one of those people is not listening.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's stressful, and and for one of those people it's stressful, right? Yeah. Consistently. So I've learnt over the years that sometimes softly catchy monkey, or you catch more flies with honey, or whichever way you want to describe it. Yep. It is a lot nicer to make it easier for people to understand and listen to what you're saying if you're saying it in a way that's acceptable.
You've got a really nice tone of voice, so I could sit here and listen to you talk about whatever you wanted for a long time. Look, Amanda, let's get into your mining career. Mm-hmm. All right, so how did you get into it? What did you do? And from an early age, obviously your family came over to WA, and then what happened?
So we lived in places like Tom Price and Geraldton, and like the development of all the mineral sands around Geraldton, and so mining was virtually all I'd known all my life. It was how my dad made his money. I sort of loved the whole notion of it, really. I'd grown up around it. It was familiar. So I guess that in my very early years, so like many of my generation, I finished school at, as early as I could, so probably 14 years and 9 months, I think, was the legal limit in those days.
So left school at 15?
Yep.
Awesome. No, I say that because every single person that I speak to here, it seems to me to be the trend of some absolute legends, some great people, left school at 15 and got into the workforce and then just bloody charged on through. It seems to be a trend.
Yeah.
And then now we're staying at school till 17, 18.
20, 22, some of the
university. Yep. Anyway,
so
apologies.
Yeah, so I left school at that age, and I went and pulled heads off prawns for Mick Kalis in Exmouth, and worked at the fish and chip shop, and whatever, made sandwiches at the local deli, and whatever I could do just to earn a bit of money, because certainly my parents didn't have the financial depth to keep us at home or send us off to university or
They had
whatever.
7 employees though.
Yeah, true that, I guess, yeah. Though there was always arguments about whose turn it was to do whatever, That was the toughest job, right, arguing with your brothers and sisters. Because there's no mercy from family, right? You go in hard.
Yeah.
On everything, right? So, I messed around like that,
Get into any trouble?
No, not really. I was sort of a few times, certainly a few times, there were times in my life when I probably could have taken safer paths, but,
Everyone makes mistakes. You learn from them. That's how you learn.
Exactly, but... And there was no social media around then to,
thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God, no camera phones. I think that when I look back 20 years, I think,
yeah.
Glad they didn't have a camera phone, right?
I almost feel sorry for kids these days.
Definitely.
Because I do feel sorry for kids because everything is out there and open and everybody comments on it, which is, pretty unfair, really. Yeah. We got away with
social pressures. Social pressures for young kids is horrific.
Horrific, yeah. So I think I was I worked in the government. I finally got a job in the government in Geraldton. By the time I was about 19, I think, after having done a few of those odd jobs around the place and worked in the government for a few years.
What did you do for the government?
So I worked in what was then called the Commonwealth Employment Service. So it was sort of linking people up with jobs or getting them unemployment benefits or whatever it was at the time. And then I got married at about 19 to and, one of those things that should never have been on social media, and I should have probably taken a safer path. It wasn't a good environment for me. So I left Geraldton when that didn't work out.
How long were you with him?
In total, about 4 years. I think we were married about a year and a half in.
Yep.
So moved on from there and moved to Perth. And
no kids with him?
No kids, no. No, so in lots of ways that was very
blessing
fortunate.
in disguise.
Yeah, yep. So and then I moved on to probably in my early 20s a job with BHP or Mount Newman Mining it was in those days, and I worked in the recruiting office there. So having come from the government, it sort of and recruiting people. So it was sort of a bit of a natural move. But I had always had mining in my sights because it was just so familiar, and I felt like that's where I belonged. So I did work for BHP, which Mount Newman Mining was in those days. I think very soon after I arrived there, they'd bought out Goldsworthy Mining, and they were developing pretty rapidly. Iron ore was only just starting to hit its straps. So I moved around with BHP. I was with them for about 13 years.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
that's a good innings.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. It was a good company. Still is, I think. Still, like we're actually now working for BHP. So great business, great times, worked in places like Coolin Island.
Oh, wow.
Groot Island, Hay Point in central Queensland, down the southwest here in Augusta. The last job I did with them was in Canada on the Canadian diamond mines, which was a fantastic experience for me in the very remote. I was talking to Dimitri before about the cold weather up there and how it was similar to his home, and there was a lot of movement between Russia and Canada at the time. So at that time, we were there pacing out the airstrip as to start, bringing in the massive mining equipment that was required for extracting diamonds at the time.
Awesome.
So I was there for a couple of years and fell pregnant to a local, which was what I call my Canadian souvenir, and he's.
What does he say about that?
Oh, he
loves
laughs
it
too. Yeah. His dad. That was sort of a bit of a casual relationship, really, and his dad died maybe 10 years ago now. But he had Cree heritage, Cree and Micmac heritage.
Wow.
So,
Did your young fella keep in contact with him?
Yes, we'd go back regularly. In fact, just this Christmas gone, we went and visited his grandmother, who's still alive in Canada. So, yeah, that's always a great experience for him to be there.
What's his name?
Max, his name is.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So Max is 27. My son, Canadian souvenirs, 27 years old. Bless him.
I need you to send a photo of him so we can put it in the episode.
Yeah. He might not. Well, he might not be thrilled about that.
We'll ask him. You can ask him. You can ask him.
And at that point I came home and had him here in Perth, and realised pretty quickly that. So I went from BHP then to work with Western Mining, WMC, down at the nickel refinery in Kwinana. Yep. But I found it really difficult to manage. As a single mum, my own dad was dying at that point, so my mum was looking after him. So it was hard at that time to find babysitters, to get daycare. Plus, he didn't love it. He was one of those kids that was sort of a bit more introverted. He wanted to be at home. He wanted to be with his mum. So it was that constant guilt about how his life was turning out. So I decided in a moment of madness when he'd just started kindy actually, and I thought, I can do this myself. I'm going to try and do my own business. So I started off as a consultant and did a little bit of support work for other small businesses around town in HR and industrial relations and et cetera, responding to tenders, et cetera. But it was a bit hard to get consistent work at that time. This is very early 2000s. And then decided, met a fella who said, let's start a business. So Is
this the start of Warrikal?
Yes. No, this was the start of what the predecessor to Warrikal called Max Engineering, funny enough.
Wow.
So we set up, he was a fella from Dunedin actually.
Was he?
Yeah.
Kiwi brethren.
Kiwi, he was Māori as well. So so he and I set up this business which, Gardner Engineering, it became Max Engineering. So we had that from 2003 until 2015 where that business was sold off to Krupp.
Wow.
Who were a big, so we were operating up in Port Hedland by that time. We weren't a massive business by any means, but we had a particular skill set that they liked, and so they...
What was it?
So that was the balance machine. So we were doing shutdowns on the balance machines, which is quite, the stacker reclaimers. And
specialist work.
Yep, specialist work.
Beautiful.
So they bought us out, and that was settled on the 1st of April 2015. Thank heavens, it was really nice. But at that time, in about 2008, 2009, a group was set up by the Australian government called AIMSI, which has become Supply Nation. So it became a thing then to identify as an Aboriginal business. And, of course, at that time...
Is that 2015?
No, it was 2008.
Okay.
2008, 2000.
Yeah, I have seen Amy. Jai.
Oh, no, that's Amy. No, this was AMC, which is now Supply Nation.
Okay.
So that was the Australian Minority Supplier...
Right.
Something or other commission. So it was about helping Aboriginal people identify in business.
That's amazing.
Having businesses.
And now there's I do know that there is a IPP. It's an Indigenous procurement policy. That's some minor, or that is that a government?
It is government.
Policy?
Yes, it is government, purely government. So it's quite different to the mining industry. The mining industry was probably, the early adapters into helping Indigenous businesses grow. And there's been positives and negatives to that, of course, but...
As with anything.
So 2008, 2009... Supply Nation started to come into existence. So then we had to chase around and get all of our identification documents, which said, which certified that we were Aboriginal people. So when I was rattling around...
Is that history repeating a little bit?
Well, it is a bit, but at that point it certainly looked like a very positive move that the mining companies were going to be making. The Australian government and the mining companies were going to be making positive steps to introduce economic participation for our people a bit more positively. So that occurred about that time, and I think. It was a bit of a struggle. It is still a struggle, but the likes of Brendan Taylor's dad,
and Brendan Taylor himself.
Brendan himself, he may not have been around at that time, but I remember all the, the early businesses at that time were Barry Taylor, Peter Todd. There was old Charlie Smith. There was a whole. Daniel Tucker, there was a whole group of us trying to, I guess, make inroads into the mining industry, developing our businesses, trying to make that work, trying to make some money, trying to find our position. And I think it's like anything, it's a slow, long process. And
It's not for the faint-hearted.
It is not
You just
for
got to keep going, one foot in front of the other.
Exactly. And as I said, that was 2008, 2009, and I think just about now we're starting to see the development of some good, solid mining industry businesses, mining support businesses that are owned by Aboriginal people in either, 100% or percentage-wise that are good businesses and, really making returns to the communities. But about that time, I started to do a lot of talking at events and stuff about why you would include an Aboriginal business in your supply chain, why that was important. And
why is that important?
Well, I guess it's about it's about human rights, basic human rights. So most of the people in the Pilbara at that time may have been getting funds from the mining sector, but there was really no activity happening. It was sort of, as our people say, it was sit-down money. It was sit-down, go-away money. It's not things that are
Brendan
developed.
Taylor called it brown paper bag money.
Yeah, same thing. It is, isn't it? It was just a way of saying go away, like sit down, shut up.
And you didn't?
No, but that was not, that was never my dad's way either.
Yep.
And it was never Brendan, the Taylor's way either. Yep. And there's a lot of the mob up in the Pilbara who were very adamant that they wanted some activity for their kids. They wanted to participate. They wanted to make their lives and their kids' lives better. And, sometimes you wonder whether it is actually better, this, working versus the traditional life that a lot of those mob up there have.
I think everyone needs to work, I think everyone needs to be able to be a part of a community and so for that community to be able to be progressing forward, everyone has a part to play.
Yeah.
You don't agree?
Look, it's not that. I just question sometimes, the traditional values of those people, particularly in the Pilbara. That, they worked, right?
Yep.
But they worked for their community. They worked to provide food every day, and
that's still working.
It's
still working.
But what the real issue becomes is that you actually need money if you want to do anything outside that community, like educate your kids and have air conditioning and cars and all of the things that we all aspire to these days. And not any old shit car. You want a decent vehicle to get around and have your family safe in. So I think that's the sort of difference. So on the one hand, I agree with you about that most people, or we all need to work, and a lot of our mobs did work in their communities, but you don't get paid for that, right? Because there was no collective wealth, like European style wealth in the communities, which is what's different.
Yep.
And so, a lot of those people still live in poverty in parts of the Pilbara. So we're not quite there yet, but and I talk about the Pilbara, but it's not just the Pilbara, it's the Murchison, it's the Kimberley, it's the Northern Territory. So right through remote areas of Australia, you see our people living in extreme poverty. And it's heartbreaking, and it's not fair, and it is unreasonable for those people to be left behind. We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world. We've got one of the best conditions and environments in the world.
We could be wealthier.
Could be.
Country could be wealthier. We could be taxing a few of these big oil and gas companies. That's politics. I apologise. We'll cut that out.
No, it's not that. It's not that I disagree with you on that either.
I
think it's.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. It was silly. It's my own nonsense.
Yeah, but it's not just big companies, because they do provide work for a lot of people as well. So there's another side to the argument. If you look at it holistically, we benefit by working with them, and they're quite generous in their conditions and benefits. It's just the obscene wealth that they amass, and it's not just companies. Sometimes it's individuals, And, you know, how many billions of dollars do you need to survive, you know?
Probably not many. Probably not many billions to survive.
No.
You know? But I mean, one house,
A house and
$1 million.
yeah. Yeah,
So you need $1 million.
Yeah.
If you try
At
and break,
least.
if you try exactly, so you try and break it down from that point, just having a roof over your head, and that's $1 million, and you're earning $70,000 to $120,000 a year.
Takes a few years, yeah.
It does, and you have to be disciplined.
Yeah, it is, and it's a different world for Indigenous people to step into that, or for many, not for all. I shouldn't say everyone because that's a broad generalisation, but for some, it's you may as well be speaking Greek. They've got no idea what it means. So that for me is heartbreaking to see. And I know that my dad would be shattered. He used to love seeing the mobs up north and how they lived a very
community-orientated life.
Absolutely. Family and community were everything. Yep. Understanding where you were, understanding country, understanding.
I've had some amazing conversations with some ripper Aboriginal people.
Yeah.
You know, over the years that I've been here. They all talk about the same thing. The best times they ever had is getting out into country.
Yeah.
Hanging, you know, going and being with family. I remember Mick Little said going out up north and cutting down a stick and making a didgeridoo. And I said, on the fly. He was just like, yeah, on the fly. We just cut it down and then, you know, we get...
Next thing you got a party.
It's a party, that's right. So I thought, oh, far out, that's awesome. So you hear the same thing over and over again. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. You know, we all used to be like that once.
Yeah, for sure.
Once upon a time. And, of course, we've lost that basic sympathy, I think it is, for that lifestyle as Western communities now, which is sort of all about the nuclear family and, you know, looking after yourself and lock the door and make sure, you know, it is a uniquely different time in our history in terms of community and understanding community. And to me, that's a bit sad because we're missing out on a hell of a lot as individuals and for our various families and extended families. So, yeah, we've gone a long way from where your question was, right?
We have, but what I want to do is get into Warrikal.
Yes, okay, please do.
Let's go.
Okay.
How did you start?
So Warrikal, after I sold the last business I had, which was called Max Engineering, I sort of went – I was going to take a few years off and think about what I was going to do. But one of the things I decided to do for myself, over the years I'd studied, having finished school at 15, and that was sort of through the 80s and 90s and even early 2000s really undervalued. So to me it was quite important that I underlined my skills and capability with education. Yep. So I made sure I did an undergraduate degree. I then did an MBA when I finished my years at...
I only shake my head because I think you're an amazing woman.
I don't think so. You just do what you've got to.
Yeah, for sure.
You just do what you've got to do, right? Or what you feel is right for you. So in 2015, I started a Master of Business at Kirrin University. And whilst I was there, I met a fella who I'm now in business with. So there was three of us in the business. We started a conversation around my kitchen table in probably about mid to late 2016 and hit the ground in January 2017. So, and that was a pretty tough old time, bit of a scary time for us. We had big plans. And I think if I was fair, I would say I was pretty sceptical and I wasn't expecting too much. But I found these two fellas that I work with had worked very hard and had very good hearts and intentionally wanted to work to help improve the lives of Indigenous people, but also to build a good, solid business and change the narrative around Indigenous people. Because until, as I said, the last probably 4 or 5 years, the view was we weren't really capable of it, and the mining.
You think only 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's pretty recent that, certainly within the last 10 years, was there any view that Indigenous people were capable of providing services into the mining industry? Yep. I would say. That's, and one of the things that I always thought, even, when I worked in the industry, that a lot of people who contract into the industry or businesses that contract into in the industry get lazy. And that, you were describing this to me before, how they, become big businesses, say, oh, I can only do this, or, I'm the only one you can work with because we understand you. But it's not like that at all.
Times are changing.
Times are changing. And I think the mining industry gets a bit sucked into that notion as well.
I think they're just so used to what they've always had. And if they've always had shit service, they're just, oh, okay, well, that takes 4.5 months. Yeah. Oh, that's how it is. That's how it is. That's how it is. And when they get a little 2-week turnaround, they go, oh, what the bloody hell happened there?
Yeah. And somebody driving up from Perth to Kalgoorlie to supply them. But, so they're not used to that, right? And they're not used to a different or competent type of service. And I'm not saying that, some of the bigger suppliers are incompetent. I'm just saying they've got lazy and easy. And sometimes when you get really big, it's hard to keep a close eye on what's going on.
For sure.
So
if the right systems aren't in place, you can lose track.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just hard to, you've got to do a lot of talking and convincing to make sure your management team and the levels down understand what it is you're looking for and you really want. What are your values? What are you hoping to get out of this business? What do you want to achieve? What's the legacy you want to leave?
Yep.
And that's the real challenge, is getting that message through, isn't it?
Yeah. So what do you think Warrikal does differently?
So I think, in terms of the culture of the business, we've kept a real family feel to who we are and, how we work with each other.
It's grown exceptionally quickly.
It has grown exceptionally quickly, and I have to say it's been a real team effort.
Great.
There's no one single person that's made this business what it is. It's been people buying into what we're saying. It's been people understanding what we're saying. It's also been our clients understanding what we're trying to achieve and actually supporting us to do so.
Yeah, beautiful.
So, yes, it is beautiful. It is a beautiful thing. And, our first major contract has been with Fortescue. They've been fantastic. They opened the doors for us. BHP, Rio Tinto, Roy Hill now we work for, Pilbara Minerals. They all understand what it is we're about. Yep. And they want to help us achieve a difference, so making a difference. And it's about sending the message that Aboriginal people are capable of doing this work, for one, but secondly, that there's not just 6 big suppliers in town or whatever the number is, that there's new up-and-comers, and we want to disrupt. We've always wanted to disrupt how things are done in the industry, and we wanted to do it better. So we're just always very careful about safety. We make sure we respond to what our clients want and that we meet all of their requirements as best we can every time. And if we can't, we communicate effectively. Because one of the things that tends to happen is you assume that people understand what your issues are, what the problems are. You think they can see what they are, but they don't.
No, that's right.
Yeah. So it's understanding that. But, they're just a great team of people. And that's, and it's fun to work with them. So, and it's pretty, what contracting is like. It's not an easy gig. No. You don't take it on. It's not for the faint-hearted. But we've established a decent size business.
How big's the workforce?
So we've got 1,500 people, and that fluctuates up to 2,200 or so.
Depending on shutdowns, depending on all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's what we've established our real technical expertise to be is in shutdowns.
Yep.
So we're regularly doing those across all the players in the Pilbara. I guess the only thing I'd say is that we were a little bit Pilbara-centric, and we're just sort of we've just signed a contract with Wesfarmers down on the Kwinana Strip to do a bit of work, and
awesome.
Fingers crossed, we've got a few others coming up that are out of the Pilbara.
So mainly just work in Western Australia, or are you looking to go South Australia? What's the next move? Are you allowed to say? Are you allowed to talk about it?
Well, that's commercial in confidence. I can't be telling you. Can't be giving away all our secrets.
All right.
But look, we are aware that we could potentially go back to New South Wales, my country.
Beautiful.
Or Queensland or wherever.
South Australia. Look,
South Australia.
Mining is everywhere in Australia, and it's only going to get bigger and better.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, and that's the other thing, they talk all the time about the potential future of iron ore and, for as long as I can remember, which is probably the late 60s, they've been saying, it's got a limited lifespan and, this is another 5 years or another 3. But it's not like that, and it hasn't been that.
They used to do that in gold. They'd say, 2 more years, 2 more years, 2 more years. A heap of the mining companies that we deal with are now doing 10-year plans, 10-year mine life. They've just gone, we now own all of these different mines and we now have a 10-year lifetime. That's amazing. Life of mines, 10 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So the same thing.
Well,
times change.
Yeah, times do change. And, nobody predicted the amount, the sheer scale of the demand in China this century.
Yep.
So... yeah, we have been limited, up until I guess this last year in the Pilbara. So now we're sort of stretching our tentacles or whatever you say to wherever we can, and who knows where that's going to take us. I was in Chile a couple of weeks ago with the Kirrikin business so one of the other things I do, where I started, I guess, was when I talked about Supply Nation was I do a lot of talks in the mining industry or in the resources sector generally about including businesses in the supply chain, Aboriginal businesses in the supply chain. And it drove me mad that every time I went uptown looking for a nice scarf or something to wear to one of these events to sort of identify who I am, there was nothing. Not very much available at all. And most of it was made overseas and in the style of, and, no authentic connection to Aboriginal art or people. So in 2014, I started Kirrikin to actually print scarves and ties and return funds to Aboriginal artists.
Amazing.
So, yeah,
Amazing.
and I know if you've ever had anything to do with Aboriginal artists.
Oh, I haven't. When I was in Kalgoorlie,
amazing.
Don Green, I think Don Green was his name, and I used to sell Aboriginal art, and even some friends of mine would go out to some of the Aboriginal communities, and there'd be people selling Aboriginal art. Yeah. Beautiful.
It is quite remarkable. But one of the things that I learned, I was just going to start a business to print, ties and scarves and ties and find a way to get some money back to the artists. But, we found really quickly how badly off the artists are. They'll often sell their amazing pieces of work for $100 or $150, and they'd be sold in Sydney for $10,000 or $20,000 or whatever.
Gosh.
I'm sure you've seen that.
I know. I had no idea.
No, really?
I had no idea.
Oh, it's incredible.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
So art dealers would go to remote communities, buy the art for next to nothing, and then take it away and sell it in a gallery.
Yeah.
Chuck it up on a wall in a gallery.
Yep.
Holy hecker.
For a small fortune.
Wow.
And, I have to say, our artwork is quite remarkable and incredibly beautiful. So I understand why why it commands that sort of money, but gee, more back to the artist, please, you know. So anyway, I started to see that. So we turned Kirrikin into a social enterprise, and so now we print authentic Aboriginal artwork onto clothing and accessories and, you know, sell it all over the world. But one of the things that's come from that is the Australian government regularly ask us to visit other countries and display, you know, we do runway shows, we interact with other Indigenous people right throughout the world. And one of the things that I've learnt from that is the issues that we face are common right throughout the world. And I guess that we, you know, Australian Aboriginal people have been identified, and Torres Strait Islanders have been identified as the oldest living culture on earth.
50,000 years, I read.
At least. But there's emerging evidence that, you know, the North American native people and even South American native people have been there for a hell of a lot longer than the last, you know, couple of thousand years, which is sort of the narrative at the moment. They're, you know, that they're not really that embedded in this country because they've only been here a couple of thousand years, you know. It's a lot better than 400 years or 200 years.
200 years, look at old bloody New Zealand.
Yeah.
200 years old.
Yeah.
A little baby.
Yeah.
Still learning. Still trainer wheels.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Well, it's like Australia too. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
I sort of think, you know, what I've observed on my visits to New Zealand is it's a lot more accepting of the Māori culture than here, I think. You know, you've got those like cultural centres in most of the most towns have got little cultural centres.
They've got Māori universities. Te Wangana or Aotearoa is a Māori university.
Yeah.
I don't know the structure. I don't want to go into that because I don't know the structure of it. I haven't been there for a long time, so I shouldn't really speak on it.
Yeah.
But New Zealand's culturally diverse, a lot of Chinese, a lot of Islanders, Tongans, Samoans.
That's why you rule at rugby, right? You've
got some bloody big boys and some big Sheilas too out there tackling each other. Crazy.
It's lovely to watch though.
It is.
And but I often liken, you know, I often use New Zealand as an example of how things should happen. I'm sure it's, you know, it's not so great right now because things are changing a bit in the world with this sort of movement towards right-wing politics or whatever you want to call it.
Crazy left-wing politics and crazy right-wing politics. And what I say is, so we actually say no politics, no religion and no bad quarterly reports on this show because no one wants to know about it. And, you know, while people want to talk about it, it's just what a shit conversation, shit topics.
Yeah.
You know, better things to talk about.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about the next 12 to 18 months for you and the businesses. Yeah. So with this new role, I know you said I don't really want to talk about the role or it's not about the title, which is so true. It's about getting in there and hard work. So the next 12 to 18 months of hard work, this is my second to last question, Amanda. I don't want to hold you up for too long.
Okay, good. So the next 12 to 18 months, I guess, we will see further growth and development. We've spent in the last year or so developing our internal systems. So one of the problems that occurs when you grow as quickly as Warrikal has, it's your systems aren't in place. You build systems for what you think you're going to be in the next year, which might be, you know, 50 people, but it turns out to be 250 people. And although we've always had big plans, the growth, I guess, has surprised us.
Superseded everything you ever thought possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Not a bad problem to have.
No, it's not. But there's a lot of, you know, like it's like the ducks swimming on the water and their feet are paddling underneath. Yep. That's exactly where we're at the moment. We're developing systems, putting them in place. Some of them we're developing ourselves. Some, you know, you can buy off the shelf basically. But there's
that's not going to work for a business that's with amazing growth potential.
No. So there is a lot of customisation of everything we do because of the way we do things is a bit, you know, like is a bit different, I guess. And also, in doing that, you have to make sure you're responding to what your clients need too, right?
Yep, that's right.
So for the next 18 months, we'll see another level of growth and taking on a couple of more new clients, hopefully in other industries. We have a little bit of interest in international work as well, and we've been working with or talking about the next big horizon in South America, which is copper, the copper growth that's going to happen there.
I'll tell you who you want to speak to, and I know you already know him. He was in the studio a few weeks ago, and I think his episode was a week ago or a couple of weeks ago. And Barry Upton.
Right.
From the WA Mining Club, Vice President of the WA Mining Club. You've probably come across him.
Yes.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's an amazing man. Barminco Ruck, and took Ruck from around $30 million or $40 million to $400+ million. Obviously, it wasn't just him.
Yeah.
But if I was you, I would take him out for lunch, buy him a beer. He doesn't like to drink too much anymore, he reckons, but we have a couple.
Yeah.
But he's an exceptional man, and that's what it's all about, talking to others and networking and finding out what works. But what he said to me is that was something he was really proud of, is being able to grow those businesses and take them international.
Yeah. And look, it's almost compulsory these days to go.
The world's tiny.
Yeah.
The world's so tiny. I want a plane. You chuck a whole bunch of people on a plane. You send them over there. You put them on a roster. It's not to go and take your family and move and live somewhere anymore. It's put them on a 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Put them on a 3. Maida.
Yeah.
Maida
group. Yes.
Maida groups all over the world now.
Yeah.
And every time I see on LinkedIn or something, Maida, and their advertising's great, and what amazing business. I've actually approached a couple of people at Maida saying, I want to know your story. I want to know the story.
Yeah. I spoke on a panel with him a couple of months ago. Great, fantastic story. Same as Parenti, the other Kalgoorlie group too.
They're all over the world?
Yeah, they're all over the world. So it's something that we're considering for sure. And, given the relationship between Indigenous people throughout the world and the difficulties some of those groups are having in developing their own businesses in their own countries, then it's, it sort of makes a bit of sense for us to think about working with local groups.
I just thought back to a previous conversation that we had, and it was you didn't want to talk about national expansion, but we've just jumped into international expansion.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you know what? If that's passion and that's growth, I'm all about it. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing from a personal level, as I said to you, we've recently bought a couple of years ago now, bought a little farm in the southwest, and we've got some olives growing on there, and there's a very small patch of fantastic Cabernet Sauvignon grapes on there. So
what?
So we're bottling some of those.
A little winery on the horizon.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't.
Can't wait to put a couple in the
in the fridge,
in the wine shelf over there.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. But unfortunately, fortunately, neither of us are really big drinkers anymore. Like my partner and I, he doesn't drink at all. He's an old footballer, which strangely enough doesn't drink. Have you ever heard of such a creature?
Oh, not very often, no.
Yes, I know. So neither of us drink a lot. So it's probably means that we'll have some stock to sell.
Great.
So
I can't wait to come down and check it out, have a little tipple.
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, Amanda, my last question for you is the best advice that you've ever heard or given. Because if you can give me some advice, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But also the best advice that you've ever heard.
Yeah, I think for me, there's a couple. So I remember a very early boss I had said, "Don't take no for an answer. Just keep at it, because at some point you're going to break that ice or break the glass or whatever it is." Yep. But the other one that I always love and think of is again, another boss said to me, don't go into anything expecting anything and you won't be disappointed.
That's beautiful. That's so true.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very true, isn't it? And so, for
If
me,
you put too much on the line, if you start buying things, like people go out and start businesses and start buying these bloody flash this and flash that and can't afford it.
yeah,
It's weird.
yeah,
Trying
and the worst is when you start to be disappointed in yourself or in others because you expected something of them. So it's
that's a tough one.
Yeah, that is a tough one. We were talking about that a bit earlier, but it is, if you want somebody to achieve something, you actually have to really outline very clearly what your expectations are.
Yes.
And even then, you won't always get what you think you're going to get.
No, that is dead right. Well, Amanda, thank you very much for taking the time to. We had a list of questions, and we've just covered. As I was looking over, I was just like, "Oh, we've covered that. We've covered that." You're very much like me. You're quite the conversationalist, aren't you?
Yeah. Sometimes, like I'm an introvert. Really, I don't spend. Yeah, it's not.
I wouldn't have picked it.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome, engaging conversation. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, it has. Look, thank you very much for tuning in to another episode on the Gold Room. Really hope you like this one. If you aren't currently using Warrikal, make sure you contact Amanda and the team because what an amazing organisation. Thank you.